So, how dangerous is it having a politician that you can't trust exercising tremendous influence over the whole of your country? How literally lethal would that be, and what sort of pernicious consequences would it have? Well, if you ask the political rights activist Mahdi Shehu about this, he'll say that Nigeria has been under precisely such a hazard for the past nearly 8 years, and that in reaction, it's left Nigerians angry, feeling betrayed, and scurrying for change in 2023, desperate to get away from what he sees as the heart of darkness, not to mention insecurity and the rising cost of just about everything. But is blaming one party the fundamental problem with this country, or is it simply that most politicians, irrespective of which party they belong to, parallel each other and don't operate on behalf of the people, but essentially run the country for themselves and for those who are on top of them? And that's what we've got to change, isn't it? Well, to find out what he makes of it all, I'm joined now in the studio by the political rights activist and self-styled fighter against human wrongs, Mahdi Shehu. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
You drove from Kaduna. You're a brave man.
It's not being bravery.
So the roads are safer then?
No option. Trains are off the rail. No flight from Abuja to Kaduna, from Kaduna to Abuja. The roads are simply first-class death traps. In spite of that, I need to give my words to you.
Well, I'm glad you kept your word, but clearly it's not, I mean, things have improved because you drove there safely, and I've talked to a number of people who have driven from
It's
there.
not an indicator at all. It's not an indicator that because I drove safely to Abuja, others might have fallen as victims the moment I passed over. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made it. Briefly, what's your overview of the race to the 2023 elections as you watch the presidential candidates?
It is dicey. Not only dicey, but it's going to come up with a lot of shocks. Unbelievable shocks. You know, a politician can make claims. These claims oftentimes are just self-serving. These claims can only be proved when the elections are conducted, when the figures are out. Then you know exactly the difference between social media prominence and the real acceptability of the electorates. But let me just give you this clear scenario. Very much unlike what people are peddling now in wholesale and in retail. During this election, Muslims are going to vote Christian candidates. Christians are going to vote Muslim candidates. Southerners are going to vote Northern candidates. Northern candidates are going to vote Southern candidates. Take it or leave it, it's going to happen. Because all these hues and cries about power shift, power devolution, they are fake, they are fraudulent, they are misleading. I will give you 4 examples.
Briefly.
Number 1, if a northerner says he wants the power to shift to the north, now assuming an indigenous Christian from Zamfara by any arrangement become the president of Nigeria, will the Northern House of Fulani Muslims believe that with an indigenous Christian from the Para presiding over as president, would they believe that power shifted to them? And I'll leave the answer to the viewers. Similarly, if a Southerner says he wants power shift to the Southeast, for example, there are indigenous Muslims in the Southeast. Assuming an indigenous Muslim from the Southeast becomes a president, will the people from the Southeast believe that with an indigenous Igbo Muslim presiding over as president, power would have been there? Now, I'm from Katsina State. The person presiding over now is General Muhammadu Buhari. From Daura, I am from Katsina Central Zone. Ask me honestly, honorably, sincerely, with a Daura man presiding over now, Do you feel that you have power? And my answer absolutely yes, I have no power. Power have not shifted to me because it has not translated into anything meaningful to my life. When Aradua was presiding over, the people of Daura asked them, with a casino presiding over now, do you feel power have shifted to you? And the answer will always going to be no. If you take power to Southeast and you say you want power to shift to Southeast, if the power were to have fallen in the hands of an Ife man, go to Modekeke and ask a Modekeke guy, do you feel with power now in the hands of Ife man, you have power? And the answer will be no. Well, so this is a contraption, is made up, being promoted, being projected, being protected by people who can only be relevant when they bring in the concept of power shift.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting analysis. I mean, the flaw in it is obviously that you don't have a Muslim candidate from the southeast who's running to be president. I mean, you've got somebody who's from the southeast who is an Igbo Christian.
There are Christians in the southwest.
No, I'm just giving you an example. I'm saying that's where the issue comes in. But let's talk about, because I mean, much as I agree with you, and you are an intelligent man and somebody who does considerable analysis, and therefore the way that you see things may not be the way that the ordinary person does. That there is a psychological sense of well-being that people get from knowing that the president is from their part of Nigeria. That's just the way the country is. So what I want to ask you is, given that the candidates this time are from the major ethnic groups in this country and appear to be ranged against each other from that point of view, do you expect to be seeing more acerbic ethnic rhetoric as the campaigns proceed, as the elections approach?
Sadly, painfully, and unfortunately, religion, tribalism, regionalism will play an epicentral role in the coming elections. That is why it will be a miracle if a president emerges at the first ballot. It is virtually impossible. We may be heading for a second ballot because people are going to vote using these three particular issues. And that's going to mar the ability of any candidate to get the separate required by the Constitution and the requirements of the Electoral Act.
And given what you're saying, do you detect any area that this is going to be a much more tense election?
More than ever in the history of Nigeria, it's going to be a keenly contested election between Obi, Atiku, Tinubu, and Konkoso. And they are going to be very important because two are lurking in the shadow waiting for a prey, and they are going to get a prey. The first two runner-ups, when going for the second ballot, will have to reach out.
They'll be the kingmakers.
They will be kingmakers. They will have to reach out to the third and
That's
the fourth
a very
position.
good point.
Yeah.
Obviously, in such an ethnically polarized climate as you have analyzed, you need a leader who can build across the divides. Who do you reckon is going to be the most successful in doing that, and why?
Let me give the parameters. We are at a crossroad now. We are in danger politically, economically, socially, sociologically. Therefore, we don't need a learner. Nigeria should not be used as a guinea pig. If there is anybody who has had...
Yeah, but none of the frontline candidates are learners.
No.
They've all been governors.
When you preside over Anambra State as a governor, or you preside over Kano, or you preside over any place as a governor...
Over Lagos.
Or Lagos, you are just dealing with a segment, a minute segment of Nigeria.
Yeah, but that's a microcosm.
Yeah, but when you preside over a country as a vice president, acting severally during that period of time, he
didn't act as president.
Being very close to the being very proximate to power, and having influenced a lot of decisions, rightly or wrongly, he's in a better place. He is in a better position to assume the position of president soon after being elected without going for any tutelage. That is number one. Number two, you require somebody who has been injured. If there is anybody who has been injured serially and severally, with deep lacerated political injury, it was Atiku Abubakar. He went to court 9 times against a president. He has been called so many things. He went through trauma, trials and tribulations, but he was able to heal his wounds silently without making any noise. Anybody who has the capacity to heal his own personal wound silently has a better capacity and ability and a track record to heal a larger societal wound. I can give you also number 3. Number 3 is if you have somebody presiding over as a vice president for 8 years, he is a diplomat for excellence, having dealt with the international community. He's a governor for excellence, having dealt with more than 34 governors at a time. He is also a security officer, having presided over a Security Council meeting so many times. He is so many things. He is so many things. One with so many outlooks, more than any of the 3. I can continue to give you, if we were 12 other reasons why.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I mean, obviously you support Atiku Abubakar. I mean, a lot of people would argue
of course,
that if you look at, in any federal society, in democracies, 9 times out of 10, you tend to have people who preside over, in an executive capacity, smaller microcosmic regions, as being able to expand from that to the national level. If you look at some of the most successful presidents in the United States, Clinton, I mean, a lot of others, they came from being governors of states to then becoming, you know, presidents
in a functional society,
presidents of their country. Well, I mean, that in fact, if you talk about lack of functionality, your opponents would argue that precisely because of that dysfunctionality, your candidate's powers were circumscribed when he was a vice president.
Because
he was limited in what he could do, and therefore he didn't get the experience that you're talking about.
Because Obasanjo saw his capacity, he saw his ability.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what. You use that as an example.
It was the same Obasanjo who felt so threatened when he was going for a second term that he had to go and beg an Atiku, because virtually all the governors were saying, Atiku, come over, we are going to have you during the primaries. He had to be begged.
Well, okay, let's move away from that, because I mean it'll be what we call, you know, a pat ball in a conversation which sort of serves no purpose. There seem to be, though, and let's be objective, because you're known as an objective person, there seem to be so many things mitigating against an Atiku victory. First of all, his candidacy is seen by many, including people in the PDP, as irregular and violates the constitution of the PDP as well as the Nigerian power rotation agreement. Do you see nuggets of truth in that? Because obviously it's causing considerable disquiet within the party.
Just take it from NPN in 1979 to UPN, to GMPP, to almost every other party that evolved, there had been one internal problem or the other. There had been so much confusions. And these are carried forward confusions. Over a period, within space of time, they have come to descend into the arena. But believe me honestly, these issues that are happening in the PDP now, they had happened severally in the past. They are happening right now in APC. Like, for example, if you take the issue of Bola Tinubu, just day before yesterday, a court gave an order that they should open the case against him for what? For forgery. For what? For misrepresentation. For what? For lying on oath. This is a fundamental issue that is affecting a presidential candidate in an election year, just 3 or 4 months away from elections. So every party to his own problem. Every candidate to his own problem.
Okay, well, let me make one more point, and then we'll move away from that. Because some people say that in addition to the things that we talked about, some people think he's too old and that there are too many allegations of corruption against him. And in those circumstances, how can he hope to win?
Well, the beauty is that we have a legal system. Good or bad, it is our own legal system.
Yeah, but you're just making an example with another person, another allegation, which has not been proven in any court.
We have a legal system.
Yeah.
There is no recorded court case in any of the courts where Atiku has been convicted for any crime.
Yeah, but neither have
anything.
Neither have the other candidates.
The other candidates, they have said, they don't open your own case, come and defend yourself. Open the case for forgery. Open the case for misrepresentation. But on record, nothing to hold Atiku in our legal system. He was ever convicted from Adam to date.
Yeah, we heard Kashim Shettima, who is the vice presidential candidate of the APC, saying that Mr. Abubakar can't hope to unite Nigeria when he can't unite his own political party. Does he have a point?
Well, the point he may have is that he needs to go back to Bola Tinubu's wife's church and let her counsel him on Book of Proverbs, chapter 31, verse 4. O King Lemuel, give strong drink to he who is about to die. Give him strong drink. Let him drink and die and forget his misery no more. But wines are not for kings and princes, lest they drink and forget the law.
I'm not quite sure what the point of that is.
The point I am making is that leaders who come to equity must come to equity with clean hands. Maybe at another time.
Well, you're not answering the question.
I will at another time. I'll tell you why I
the
quoted.
PDP is divided, and the Atiku has failed to unite the
like
party.
The
That's the point he's making.
Substantial part of the Christian community are still against the Muslim ticket.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so they also have their own. They have their own issue. Up to now, they have not been able to convince the Christian community on this lethal choice, because it's quite lethal to ignore the substantial population of Christians in Nigeria and assume that there is nobody credible enough among the Christian community to become a vice president. This is a fundamental error. It's a personal choice, and the harvest day will come on 25th February 2023. There will be harvest day. There will be a payday.
Right, okay. And let's turn to Peter Obi. How do you think his performance in this race has affected the campaign so far?
Well, number one, let me thank him extremely well for his emergence, because you could see that the moment Obi emerged, the call for Biafra almost went down. The issue of secession went down. The killings and the maimings and the arson drastically went down. We should give him that credit. If there had not been an Obi emerging from the south, the southeast, there would have been arson, chaos, murder, drilling the political process. Number two, I must also congratulate him for being unable to call his supporters to order. They are making so much injury on his candidature while he is trying to show himself as a national candidate out to unite the country. His supporters are over the social media making all sorts of threats. In democracy, threat doesn't pay. What pays is bring out your manifesto, bring out your programs, convince people, especially in democracy in Nigeria, where you require the votes of virtually every region to become a president.
But you have to admit that the media narrative has shifted, because it was always going to be, as it was in 2015 and 2019, about the APC and the PDP. But now his case and cause are no longer underestimated, and if anything, it's being overestimated.
Well, I think he's being overestimated, but also he cannot ignore the much influence he has brought, and especially young people who have not witnessed the war. Young people who are just coming up of age to vote, who don't even know the
They have no memory.
They have no memory. They don't understand the political intricacies of Nigeria. They're just being sentimental. But as sentimental as they are entitled to that. At the age of 18 and above, you are entitled to be sentimental, to be responsible, sensible, nonsensical, stupid, and even dangerous at that age is allowed.
Right. Okay, let's look at Rabiu Kwankwaso of the NNPP. How do you think his presence in this presidential race has affected the basic dynamics of Nigerian politics and the political system?
It's just like a housewife trying to prepare a soup. And the water is there. The pot is there. The ingredients are there, but no recipes. Kwankwaso is the recipe of the current political unfolding in Nigeria. Ignore him at a consequence. Ignore him at a peril. Ignore him at a price. He is the man to watch.
Right. So what does that mean? Does that mean that he has the potential to win the election, or he has the potential to muddy the waters for those who may win the election?
He has the potential and the capacity to play an important role in the 2023 elections. How it will come, it will be determined by the first ballot.
Do you think Nigeria has a chronic case of, I don't know if you saw the movie Groundhog Day, where we're likely to see the continuing role of the old style politics and nothing is likely to change in 2023, or do you see things changing in that direction?
Already Nigerian democracy is monetized from the primary elections, but the cost of purchasing forms. You could see that it is a clear case of restricted entry, forced exit. If you have no quantum of money to buy forms, you are restricted from entering. Once you enter and you lose prominence and you lose favor, you are forced into exit. Therefore, for a long time to come, until and unless there is a rethink, until and unless there is an agreement that we need these people to be away, to go far, far, far away, like Thomas Paine. Let them give us space for that long. Money will continue playing a very, very important role in Nigerian politics. And as long as money is going to be an important factor in politics, these old logs, these old lions, these old giraffes
will remain relevant.
Either at the center or behind the scene.
That's a very interesting point and a good place to end the conversation. I want to thank you very much indeed. Always very interesting talking with you. Mahdi Shehu is a political rights activist and self-styled fighter against human wrongs. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.